Picture this, you are sitting in a meeting and you're watching a colleague, maybe someone you genuinely like and, respect, just completely bulldoze the room.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they are dominating every single conversation. Or maybe you have a team member who constantly dives headfirst into these massive projects without like a shred of planning.
Oh, the chaos.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just watching them drown in it. You see the problem clear as day. You have the exact insight, like the exact piece of advice that could help them turn it all around. But here's the catch. They aren't asking for it.
No, they never are. And it's just an incredibly uncomfortable place to be. You're caught in this agonizing limbo.
Yeah, totally.
Because if you say nothing, you have to watch them continue to struggle. And, well, usually you have to deal with the fallout yourself.
Always.
But if you do say something, you risk them immediately, like putting up walls and getting super defensive.
Exactly. But we are going to solve this dilemma today because we're doing a deep dive into how to share those valuable, entirely accurate insights you have. Without making the other person immediately put their armor on.
Right.
And our guide for today's deep dive is a really great new article from the Phoenix Performance Partners. It's titled, Your Insight Could Help Them If You Deliver It Right.
And the if is, it's doing a monumental amount of heavy lifting in that title.
Oh, for sure.
To really ground our conversation today. The Phoenix Performance Partners, they bring in this incredibly powerful quote from the psychiatrist and philosopher Viktor Frankl.
Oh, I love his work.
Right. He wrote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response.
Wow.
Yeah. And everything we're going to explore today is fundamentally about how you, as a colleague, a peer, or a manager, can effectively create that space for someone else rather than just forcing a reaction out of them.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can learn the right way to deliver our insights, we really need to look at why our standard everyday methods fail so spectacularly.
They really do fail.
Right. I was thinking about this, and giving unsolicited advice really feels like aggressively throwing a life jacket at someone who doesn't think they're drowning.
That is, yes, exactly.
Like from your perspective, you are literally saving their life. But from their perspective, they're just enjoying a nice swim, and suddenly you're pelting them in the head with a heavy piece of foam.
Just knocking them out.
Exactly. They are grateful. They're just mad you hit them.
That is a perfect visualization of the disconnect. And honestly, it happens all the time in the workplace.
It really does. I actually, I have a painfully embarrassing confession to make here.
Oh, do tell.
So early in my career, I had this peer who was notoriously bad at reading the room during client presentations. Yeah. He would go off on these incredibly dense technical tangents while the clients were like visibly glazing over, just checking their phones, staring at the wall.
Painful to watch.
So painful. So I thought I was doing him a massive favor. After one particularly brutal pitch, I pulled him aside in the hallway and basically said, hey, you're losing them when you get into the weeds. You need to keep it high level and focus on the ROI.
Oh, boy.
Right? I thought I was being a great team player.
I guess. He didn't shake your hand and thank you for your profound wisdom.
He practically bit my head off. He spent the next 20 minutes aggressively defending his presentation style, telling me I didn't understand the technical requirements the client actually needed.
Of course.
And things were icy between us for months. But here's what confuses me. My intuition about his presentation was right.
Yes.
The clients were bored. We were losing them.
Yeah.
So if our insight is usually correct because we are seeing behavioral patterns from the outside that they just can't see from the inside, why does it go so terribly wrong when we point it out?
Yeah. Well, what's fascinating here is the underlying neuroscience of how the brain processes uninvited information.
Okay, lay it on me.
So insight without permission isn't coaching. It is literally just unsolicited advice. And when you offer unasked for feedback, the human brain processes it as a social threat.
The threat, like a physical danger.
Exactly like that. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for threat detection, doesn't really distinguish between a physical attack in the wild and an ego attack in a conference room.
Wow, really?
Yeah. When someone suddenly points out a flaw you didn't ask them to point out, your brain's alarm bells just go off. You are experiencing a sudden drop in status and autonomy.
That makes so much sense.
Right. So psychology dictates that the brain immediately triggers one of two defensive modes to protect itself.
Okay, I assume one of those modes is the active defense I got from my coworker in the hallway.
Yes, exactly. Active defense is the fight response. It sounds exactly like what you experienced. You know, you don't understand the full situation. Let me explain why your observation is lacking context. It's just an instinctive, protective measure.
Right. He was literally fighting back.
Exactly. But the second mode is actually far more common in corporate environments.
What's that?
It's dismissal. This is the flight response.
Oh,
It's much quieter, but it's just as fatal to growth. It sounds like a very polite, thanks for sharing.
right.
But what that secretly translates to in their head is, I am completely ignoring everything you just said, and I'm desperately waiting for you to stop talking so I can leave.
Oh, wow. I've definitely done the dismissal mode. Like when someone gives me unprompted advice, I just nod, say, appreciate the input and file it directly into the metal trash can.
Yeah, we all have. And the crucial takeaway here, the reason why this happens, isn't because your colleague is inherently difficult or, stubborn.
Right.
It is because true developmental growth only happens when a person is genuinely open to learning. Without that pre-existing openness, your incredibly accurate, well-intentioned insight doesn't land as help. It lands as judgment.
It lands as judgment. That is such a vital distinction.
Yeah.
So since aggressively throwing the life jacket of unsolicited advice just triggers a fight or flight response, the logical next step for us is figuring out how to get the listener to actually want the life jacket.
Exactly.
We need them to be open. But how do we do that? Do we just walk up to their desk and say, hey, can I give you some feedback? Because
Well,
I have to be honest, whenever someone says those exact words to me, my stomach completely drops.
oh, absolutely.
My shoulders physically tense up. I am immediately bracing for impact.
You are absolutely right to feel that way, and the experts agree that asking, can I give you some feedback, has practically become corporate code for I am about to criticize you.
Right. It's terrible.
It almost always triggers that exact bracing mechanism you just described. The alternative approach that the source outlines is to ask for permission, but to do it genuinely, not performatively.
Performative meaning you aren't really asking.
Right.
You're just politely announcing that the criticism is incoming regardless of what they say. Like, I'm going to tell you this whether you like it or not, but I'm putting a question mark at the end to sound polite.
Precisely. A genuine ask means they actually have the power to say no, and you will respect that no.
Okay. So how do we ask genuinely?
Well, there are highly specific, tested phrases you can use instead of the dreaded feedback question. For instance, you might say, I noticed something that might be useful. Are you open to hearing it?
Softer.
Or you could say, I have a perspective on what happened. Would it help to hear it?
I have to push back a little bit on those, though.
Sure.
If someone came up to me and said, I have a perspective on what happened, would it help to hear it? It almost feels a bit passive-aggressive.
Interesting.
Like they're saying, I know a secret about you that you don't know.
Uh.
Doesn't that trigger defensiveness, too?
That's a very fair critique, and I think it highlights why tone and existing relationship dynamics are just so important here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If you say it with a smirk, yes, it's going to sound condescending. But if it's delivered with genuine care, it actually works brilliantly.
Okay.
Because if we connect this to the broader psychological picture, these specific questions do two very crucial things to the listener's brain. First, they give the person agency.
Agency, meaning they are in control of the interaction.
Exactly. By allowing them to choose whether or not to receive the information, you are making them an active participant in the dialogue, not just a passive recipient of a lecture.
Right.
You are completely bypassing that amygdala threat response because you aren't forcing anything on them.
They get to decide.
Yes. And the second thing it does is signal respect. By asking, you are proving that you don't assume you automatically have the right to evaluate them. You are acknowledging that they are the ultimate judge of whether your perspective is useful or not.
So they get to open the door themselves rather than having you kick it down. Oh, I see the value in that.
Yeah.
And giving feedback to someone at your exact same level is a total minefield. So how does this change if it's a peer?
For a peer, the phrasing needs to be even more carefully calibrated to ensure there's no perceived power grab.
Right, because you're not their boss.
Exactly. A great approach from the article is saying, I see something you might not be seeing. Is this a good time to share it, or would you rather not?
Or would you rather not? Wow, you
Yeah.
are literally handing them the keys to the conversation and pointing them to the exit.
Ah.
I imagine when people feel they genuinely have an out, their defense is lower, and they're far more likely to actually stick around and listen.
That's exactly how it works. Counterintuitive, but true.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. because gaining permission gets you through the front door. They've said, yes, I'm open to hearing it.
Right.
But once you are inside the house, you still have to deliver the message without breaking all the furniture.
Very true.
How do we actually share this insight once they are ready for it? Let's go back to my old coworker, the one who droned on in client meetings.
Let's do it.
If I had asked him for permission and he said yes, what should my next sentence have been? Because my original sentence, "You're losing them when you get into the weeds," was clearly a disaster.
Yeah, it was. And the original sentence failed because it was heavy on judgment. The first rule of delivering insight, according to the framework, is to share observations, not judgments.
Observations.
You're losing them is an evaluation. It's a critique of his performance.
Right. So what does an observation look like?
An observation is something a video camera could record. It's an entirely neutral fact. So instead of "you're losing them," you might say, "I noticed that during the last 3 technical slides, the client stopped asking questions and started checking their phones."
Oh, that is so entirely different.
Right.
I'm not telling him what he is or that he's doing a bad job. I'm just playing back the tape of what happened in the room. You spoke, they checked their phones.
Exactly. Neutral facts.
But let me play devil's advocate here. If I just drop that neutral fact on them, they were checking their phones, and leave it hanging in the air, it still feels a bit pointed.
Sure.
Like, how do I soften that without backing down from the reality of the problem?
Well, that brings us to step 2. You transition from observation to connection. You have to tie that neutral observation directly to what they care about.
Oh, I see.
If you just leave the fact hanging, it still feels like an indictment. You have to prove that you are an ally, not an adversary.
How do I do that?
You connect it to their stated goals. Presumably, your colleague wanted to win the client's business, right?
Absolutely. He was obsessed with closing the deal.
So you use that. You say, "I know how critical it is for you to close this deal, and I know you want to prove our technical superiority.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if spending so much time on the architecture slides might be unintentionally causing the client to disengage from the overall pitch."
Oh, man, that is brilliant because now I'm not the enemy attacking his presentation style.
Right.
I'm a partner helping him achieve the thing he already wants. I've aligned myself with his ambitions.
Precisely. When you connect your observation to their goal, the insight transforms. It stops being critical and becomes genuinely helpful. You are on the same side of the table looking at the problem together rather than sitting across a table evaluating him.
Okay, so we're on the same side of the table. I've shared the observation. I have connected it to his goal of closing the deal. Now, I want him to change his behavior. My instinct is to just give him the solution. Like, next time, you should cut the architecture slides entirely and just show the executive summary. That's helpful, right? I'm giving him the fix.
It might be factually helpful, but psychologically, it's a trap.
Really? Why is it a trap? I'm saving him time.
Because you are mandating change. When you tell someone what they should do, you instantly put yourself in a parent-child dynamic.
Ooh, yikes.
Yeah. You are the wise authority figure, and they are the subordinate who needs to be instructed. Even if they agree with you, it strips them of their autonomy. The far more effective approach, step 3, is to ask, "Don't tell."
So how do I get him to cut the slides without telling him to cut the slides?
You invite exploration. You might ask, "What would happen if we moved the technical architecture to the appendix and just focused the main deck on the high-level ROI? Would you be open to experimenting with that on the next call?"
Experimenting with that. I love that framing.
It's powerful.
Because an experiment implies that if it doesn't work, we can try something else. It lowers the stakes completely. It's not a permanent, scary life change where he has to admit his old way was entirely wrong.
Exactly. And more importantly, by asking a question, you keep him in ownership of his own growth.
Right.
He has to think about the answer and agree to the experiment, rather than just complying with your directive. People are far more committed to solutions they help design.
That makes total sense. All right, so we've agreed on the experiment. The final piece of the puzzle is step 4, offering support.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, I usually wrap up these kinds of conversations by saying something like, "Let me know if you want to talk more about this." It feels polite and supportive. But I'm guessing you're going to tell me that's wrong too.
Well, it's not inherently malicious, but it is vague. And frankly, it often puts the burden entirely back on them to seek you out, while secretly keeping you in the position of the expert waiting to be consulted. It's bit of a savior complex.
Ah, I see. I'm waiting on my throne for them to come ask for more of my wisdom.
Exactly. A much more empowering alternative is to position yourself as a true collaborator. Try saying, I'm happy to be a thinking partner on this if it would help as you prep for the next pitch. Or if you'd rather work through it on your own, that's great too.
Thinking partner versus let me fix you. I really, really like that.
It's subtle, but it shifts the whole dynamic.
It makes it explicitly clear that this is about their development, not about my need to be the hero who fixes their flaws. I'm offering support, but I'm completely unattached to whether they actually take it.
Which brings us back to agency. From the first moment of asking permission to the final moment of offering support, you are ensuring they remain in the driver's seat.
Okay, I am completely on board with this entire framework. It logically flows, it respects the neuroscience, it makes total sense.
I'm glad.
But wait a minute. We need to look at the massive elephant in the room here.
Uh-oh. Let's hear it.
Let's rewind all the way back to step one. What happens if we do the very first thing? We ask for genuine permission. We say, I have a perspective on what happened. Would it help to hear it? And they flat out say no.
Well, it happens.
Right. So are we really just supposed to smile, say, okay, have a great day, and walk away? Let's use the other example from the start of the deep dive, the team member who dives into projects without planning. What if their chaotic lack of planning is actively causing the rest of the team to work over the weekend to clean up their mess? We can't just let that go because they aren't open to feedback, right?
This raises a profoundly important question, and it requires us to understand a vital distinction presented in the source: the difference between coaching and accountability.
Okay, let's draw that line, because I feel like those terms get thrown around interchangeably in corporate speak all the time.
They do, but they are very different tools. Coaching is about development. It's about personal growth, improving a skill, or enhancing a dynamic. And as we've established, coaching requires permission.
Right.
If the issue is purely developmental, like someone who could be a slightly better public speaker, but their current style isn't actually hurting anyone and they aren't ready to hear it, then yes, you respect the no.
Just walk away.
Because forcing feedback on someone who isn't ready doesn't help them grow. It only damages the trust between you. You let it go for now and focus on building the relationship so you can create the conditions for openness later.
But what if it's the chaotic planner? What if it's the person making everyone work the weekend? That's not just personal growth anymore.
Exactly. That is where we cross the line into accountability. If a behavior is impacting the team, violating a core value, or creating real, tangible problems for others, you must address it directly.
Right.
But, and this is the crucial part, you don't treat it as developmental coaching. You treat it as accountability. And accountability does not require their permission.
So coaching requires permission because it's about internal growth. Accountability doesn't require permission because it's about external impact on the rest of the ecosystem.
Precisely. If they are causing the team to work weekends, you don't say, are you open to some feedback about your planning?
Right, because if they say no, you're stuck.
Exactly. Instead, you say, when projects launch without a project plan, the team has to work the weekend to compensate. That isn't sustainable, and it can't continue. We need to establish a mandatory planning phase moving forward.
Wow. That's a completely different conversation. It's not an invitation, it's a boundary.
It is. And understanding which arena you are operating in, the coaching arena or the accountability arena, before you open your mouth, will save you a tremendous amount of frustration. Where leaders often get into trouble is trying to disguise an accountability conversation as a coaching conversation.
Oh, the old I'm going to coach you into doing exactly what I demand trick. I've seen that one.
Yes. And people can smell that lack of authenticity a mile away. If it's a boundary, state the boundary. If it's an opportunity for growth, ask for permission to explore it.
That distinction is incredibly clarifying. And this whole dynamic, we should point out, isn't just for managers talking down to direct reports.
Not at all. These principles work exceptionally well with peers. In fact, peer coaching can sometimes be even more powerful than manager coaching because it removes the inherent threat of a performance review.
Oh, absolutely.
But it only works if it's approached correctly.
And I imagine the motive has to be pristine. It can't be you trying to establish dominance over the person sitting in the cubicle next to you or, trying to prove you're the smartest person in the room.
That is the fastest way to destroy a peer relationship. Peer coaching only works when it comes from genuine care and respect. It cannot come from a place of hidden superiority or a desire to save someone who hasn't asked to be saved.
Right.
You use the exact same steps. You ask permission. You share neutral observations. And connecting it to their goals is especially potent with a peer.
How so?
Saying something like, you mentioned wanting to build credibility with the executive team. I'm wondering if this specific habit might be getting in the way of that. It shows that you are listening to them and actively rooting for their success.
It fundamentally changes you from a workplace rival into a trusted confidant.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for us right now? Well, to wrap up our deep dive today, I want to issue a specific challenge to you, the listener, straight from the source. It's a four-part challenge to practice taking all this theory and using it to turn your uninvited insight into a welcomed invitation.
I love this challenge.
Right, so first, identify. Think of one person in your work life right now who could genuinely benefit from an insight or observation you have been holding on to.
Just one person.
Second, prepare. This is where you check your own motives. Ask yourself honestly, are you actually trying to help them achieve their goals, or were you just trying to fix something about them that annoys you? Frame your thought as a neutral video camera observation. Connect it to what they care about. And this is the hardest part. Mentally prepare yourself to graciously accept a no if they aren't open to hearing it.
That really is the hardest part.
It is. Third, act. Go to them and ask for genuine permission. If they say yes, share your observation as a question. Invite them to experiment and offer to be a thinking partner without being attached to the outcome.
Perfect.
And finally, fourth, reflect. Afterward, take a moment to ask yourself, did asking for permission change the physical dynamic of the conversation? How did they react? And what made it easier or harder for you to stay curious instead of just lecturing them on what to do?
It is a fantastic challenge because it forces you out of the hypothetical and into immediate, tangible practice.
It really does. Because your ultimate takeaway from this deep dive should be this. Your intuition about how someone could grow is probably incredibly accurate. You should trust it.
Yes.
But your job is not to make people listen to you. Your job is to offer your insight in a way that invites openness instead of triggering their brain's defense mechanisms. When you do that, your insight stops being a thrown life jacket and actually becomes the catalyst for their growth.
So well said. And as you think about taking on that challenge this week, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over.
Ooh, I love these. Let's hear it.
We talked about checking your motives before you approach that colleague, but I encourage you to take it one step deeper. Before you walk up to them, ask yourself one truly difficult question.
Oh.
Is the behavior you are most desperate to fix in them actually a reaction to a team dynamic that you might have inadvertently helped create? Yeah, if you can approach them not just as a flawless outside observer, but from a place of shared vulnerability and shared responsibility, how much wider might that door of permission swing open?